Ambassador Zethkar adjusted his environmental suit as he stepped onto the surface of Sol 3, the planet the indigenous species insisted on calling Earth. The readings from his instruments painted a grim picture: atmospheric oxygen levels that would corrode most civilized species' respiratory systems, gravity nearly twice the galactic standard, and radiation bombardment that would sterilize most worlds within decades. The Galactic Council had been unanimous in their assessment. This world was a death trap, barely suitable for the most primitive forms of life. Yet somehow, impossibly, it had spawned a species that not only survived but thrived in conditions that would challenge even the hardiest of the Council's member races. "Ambassador," came the voice of Captain Sarah Chen through his translator. She stood before him without any protective gear, breathing the toxic atmosphere as if it were perfectly normal. "Welcome to Earth. I hope your accommodations on the orbital station were comfortable." Zethkar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he processed the casual way she dismissed the lethal environment around them. His people, the Veltari, came from a carefully regulated world where atmospheric composition was maintained to precise specifications, where gravity generators ensured perfect conditions, and where stellar radiation was filtered through multiple atmospheric layers and artificial shields. "Captain Chen," he began, his voice carrying the formal cadence of diplomatic protocol, "the Council has completed its assessment of your world. I'm afraid the verdict is concerning." Chen's expression remained neutral, though Zethkar's advanced sensors detected elevated stress markers in her biometrics. Around them, other humans continued their daily activities, children playing in what his instruments registered as dangerously intense solar radiation, workers operating heavy machinery in gravitational conditions that would crush most species, elderly humans somehow maintaining mobility despite a lifetime of exposure to this hostile environment. "We've been expecting this conversation," Chen replied. "Your preliminary surveys made it clear that you consider our world unsuitable." "Unsuitable is an understatement," Zethkar said, gesturing at his environmental readings. "Captain, your planet's atmospheric composition would be classified as industrial-grade solvent on most civilized worlds. Your gravity well is so intense that simply standing here is causing microfractures in my exoskeleton. The radiation levels are what we evolved in," Chen interrupted gently. "Ambassador, with respect, you're viewing our world through the lens of species that have spent millennia carefully controlling their environments. We never had that luxury." As they walked through what the humans called a city park, Zethkar observed phenomena that defied his understanding of biological possibility. Humans engaged in recreational activities that his sensors classified as extreme survival scenarios, running at speeds that would cause cardiac failure in most species, lifting weights that would crush Veltari bones, exposing themselves to solar radiation levels that required protective gear even for his hardy people. "The Council's recommendation," Zethkar continued, "is immediate evacuation to more suitable worlds. We have identified 17 planets within your sector that could support human life with minimal terraforming. The atmospheric processors could have breathable air within." "Breathable for whom?" Chen asked. She knelt beside a small plant, growing in what Zethkar's instruments identified as toxic soil contaminated with heavy metals. Yet the plant flourished, and Chen handled it barehanded. "Ambassador, you keep talking about suitable conditions, but suitable for what? Your species have spent so long in controlled environments that you've forgotten what it means to adapt." They paused at an overlook where the city sprawled below them. Zethkar's sensors painted an alarming picture of industrial activity, electromagnetic interference, and atmospheric pollutants that should have rendered the area uninhabitable. Yet millions of humans lived and worked there, not merely surviving but building, creating, thriving. "Your preliminary reports mentioned that humans have only recently achieved spaceflight," Zethkar observed. "Most species require thousands of years of careful environmental management before attempting interstellar travel. How did you develop such technology while living in these conditions?" Chen smiled, and for the first time, Zethkar detected something in her expression that his sensors couldn't quantify, a mixture of pride, defiance, and something else. Determination, perhaps. Because of these conditions, not despite them, she said, every day on Earth is a problem that needs solving. Our atmosphere tries to corrode our infrastructure, so we developed better materials. Our gravity fights every launch, so we built more powerful engines. Our weather systems are chaotic and violent, so we learned to predict and adapt to rapid changes. She gestured toward the bustling city below. You see a death world, Ambassador. We see a training ground. Zethkar's consciousness struggled to process this concept. His people had achieved spaceflight by gradually perfecting their world, creating ideal conditions for technological development. These humans had done it by battling their planet every single day. The Council believes, he said slowly, that no species should have to endure such hardship. The Council is made up of species that haven't faced real hardship in millennia, Chen replied. Tell me, Ambassador, when your people encounter a problem in space, equipment failure, hostile environments, unexpected challenges, how do they respond? Zethkar considered this. The Veltari response to problems was typically to retreat, regroup, and apply technological solutions developed in controlled laboratory conditions. It was methodical, careful, and usually effective given enough time and resources. We adapt our technology to overcome obstacles, he said. We adapt ourselves, Chen countered. When our early ancestors faced ice ages, they didn't wait for the climate to improve. They learned to make fire, build shelters, create tools. When diseases threatened our species, we didn't just develop medicines, our immune systems evolved to fight them. When our planet's gravity tried to keep us grounded, we didn't make our planet lighter. We built rockets powerful enough to escape. As if summoned by her words, a spacecraft thundered overhead, its engines burning with an intensity that made Zethkar's instruments scream warnings. Yet it was clearly human-built, crude by galactic standards but undeniably powerful. The Council offers us paradise worlds, Chen continued. Perfect atmospheric conditions, ideal gravity, filtered radiation, stable weather. But Ambassador, what happens to a species that has never faced adversity when it finally encounters a problem that can't be solved by retreating to a better environment? The question hung in the toxic air between them. Zethkar's 4 eyes focused on the human captain, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. Not as a primitive being struggling to survive on a death world, but as the product of millions of years of adaptation to impossible conditions. The Council will be interested in your perspective, he said finally. Perhaps there is wisdom in what you call home that we have forgotten in what we call paradise. Chen nodded, then extended her bare hand toward him, a gesture that required him to briefly remove his protective glove. Her grip was firm, her skin warm despite the hostile environment. You're welcome to stay as long as you need, Ambassador. Earth has a way of teaching visitors about themselves. As Zethkar looked around at the impossible world that had forged an impossible species, he began to understand that perhaps the Council's definition of suitable for life needed revision. Earth wasn't unfit for life. It was a crucible that created life unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And perhaps, he thought as another human spacecraft roared overhead, that was exactly what the galaxy needed.